Our next speaker is a poet whose writings, and I quote, are from a mind in constant thought. Please give a warm welcome to Courtney.
My target is the life hiding inside others. The traumatized, the victims who don't yet know they're survivors. Who walk around with an intense, mostly overwhelming sense of dread for this world and most everything in it. Told it's all in their head by the dispassionate. Trying to help. Trying. Will they just help already? 'Cause I am tired of suffering. I am tired of waiting to be what this world wants me to be. Am I good enough yet? Can I be worthy? Why don't you see me? Why can't anyone hear me? You. That life hiding inside you is my target. I want to spark it with my words. I want the flames to roar throughout your body, the noise almost as bad as the burn, until it escapes out your mouth. And I don't just want your words. I want your voice. I want to not only hear, I want to experience the essence of who you are when you speak. Because when I get desperate for answers, I become weak. When I think I have to know what's right, my vision fades to binaries. Gray surrenders to black and white. Time becomes relevant. Day and night, dark and light, fight or flight, fight, flight, fright, frozen, stagnant, dead, though seemingly alive. Hello, humans and aliens disguised as humans. My name at this point in my life is Gork. I'm a poet, and as such, I recognize the various roles I play in life. One such role is assassin. As was brought out in the poem I just recited, my targets are zombies. No, I'm not talking about the brain-eating, Walking Dead zombies we see on TV. I'm referring to us humans, walking around disconnected from the innermost parts of ourselves, limiting our ability to truly connect with others. It's this part of us that doesn't want to be awake or alive, that denies life-enriching experiences for the sake of an easy and detached life. This part of us that's enslaved by stories of unworthiness and addicted to the emotional response of apathy. So what is my greatest weapon when it comes to facing these zombies? Creating empowering, safer spaces for vulnerable expression. I have a passion for unraveling the stories within me and outside myself, for the sake of understanding and increased curiosity. My tools for gaining a sense of personal freedom. When I get these stories out of my head by writing, when I get them onto paper through public expression, I become empowered and enlivened because I have a radical acceptance of these mental processes and also the recognition that I am not these stories or perceptions. I give myself permission to make mistakes, but I don't leave myself in those mistakes. For me, living consists of stepping outside my comfort zone into a safe space of learning. This safe space is created within by connecting with all the different parts of myself. Being able to name the depression, anxiety, anger, joy I may experience. In being vulnerable and sharing this process with others, I'm inviting them into this safety zone, where we can become empowered to have conversations about fearful topics, such as race, gender, sexual assault, the list goes on. We're creating a culture of belonging where we can help one another come to life. This is profound, considering that just 8 years ago, I was on a mission to kill myself. At 16 years of age, I had lost everything that was once familiar to me. I was no longer taking care of my meth-addicted, alcoholic mother and my then emotionally distant twin brother. Foster care introduced me to adults who could provide food and a physical shelter, but were incapable of emotional support, some even being physically and emotionally abusive. I had never learned healthy ways of coping with tremendous pain and loss, so I began cutting myself. The organized religion I was a part of shamed me for this. Foster parents rejected me. For the next 2 years of my life, I was forced to take psychiatric medication while being bounced around from group home to psych hospital. What was worse than this external reality was my internal realm. I had convinced myself that I was unworthy of love as a way to try to understand everything happening. When this story was confirmed by a social worker who told me I was foolish for thinking I could find a family to love me, I told myself I would be dead by my own hands by the time I was 18. I genuinely thought this would be best for the world and everyone in it. No one would have to bear the burden of loving such a selfish and disgusting human. This past version of myself was enslaved by the story of not being worthy of love. A story created to help me make sense of the lack of belonging in my life. I had internalized the shame being projected onto me by disconnected adults, following this culture of capitalism that tells us repeatedly that we need to prove our worth and compete for resources. Stories that keep us from working together to get our needs met, from being empowered to learn together. I'm going to go back to the part of my speech where I say I give myself permission to make mistakes. And throughout my speech, I talk about being vulnerable, which means being open about my process. Like right now, this is terrifying. I don't know what to do with my arms. It's awkward. I forgot part of my speech, and I'm trying to remember it. I was a human who desperately needed connection with myself and others. But I was engaging in behavior that deepened my self-hatred and further repelled people away from me. This behavior was fueled by that story of not being lovable. And the only place appropriate for me to express my pain was in therapy. It took time to build a sense of connection strong enough to feel safe enough to explore the deep, scary parts of my subconscious and start unraveling those stories that were influencing my life. When this connection was formed and I could talk, that therapist-client relationship was not a community for me. I didn't realize it back then, but I desired to be witnessed by more than just a professional getting paid to do so. At 18 and a half, the final attempt to take my life landed me in a 4-day coma. When the fog cleared from my brain, I met with the hospital psychiatrist. He sat across from me with a large stack of files, and after an uncomfortable silence, he spoke. "What are you wanting? I mean, I couldn't even carry all of your files with me. This is your 12th psychiatric facility. You've tried countless medications. What are you wanting?" Before I could think, the answer left my mouth with such conviction it shocked me. I want to feel. I want to be human. I want that to be okay. Fast forward 3 years to my first writing workshop, entitled Transforming Trauma into Triumph. The facilitator had us connect with our six senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, and feeling. Using these, we wrote about a joyful, triumphant experience and then a painful, traumatic one. I remember being so upset by the time this workshop was over. A world of stories had been awakened within me, demanding my attention. I couldn't fathom going to any other workshops the next 2 days. When I told the facilitator about my predicament, he replied with, "Keep writing." Half a year later, I dropped out of college because my mental health had deteriorated. Post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from my childhood and teen years encompassed my reality. My headspace was not a safe place for me to be, despite the yoga, meditation, and time spent studying psychology and sociology in college. The only relief I found was in writing. I was able to share my words with a trusted friend. He told me the world needed to hear my voice. When I brushed it off with my insecurities, he said I was selfish for not sharing. Despite my fear of exposing the inner workings of my mind to others, I could see the truth in what he had said. And just a few months later, I was right here in Humboldt County, forcing myself to go to music open mics and share my poetry. The first few times, my nerves got the best of me, and my inside said hello to the inside of a toilet bowl. But I still managed to get on stage and expose myself. I was learning that the brutal process before performing was worth being embraced by the people listening afterwards. I had found a community of creative weirdos who accepted me for who I was and who I was becoming. This community grew as I traveled to Beyond Academia Free School Poetry Camp in Colorado that summer. I was so inspired by all the events centered around poetry. I came back to Arcata and started hosting what I call Human Expression Open Mic. What began as a venue for spoken word has transformed into a space where courage through vulnerability makes way for connection with oneself and the others in the room. It's this connection that creates a sense of safety within us and the space around us. Connecting with ourselves involves learning radical self-acceptance, the process of digging up our fears, hopes, insecurities, and desires to get to the root of them. In being vulnerable and sharing this process with others, we help them connect with themselves, and we're connecting with each other. We're building this culture of belonging where we can be empowered together. We can be vulnerable together. By being honest about our struggles in a supportive environment, we learn that it's okay to have struggles. We learn to love our pain as much as our joy and to give it all a voice. We learn to not create identities based off the thoughts we have and the emotions we experience. Being human is dynamic and ever-changing. We are not our anger, our depression, our symptoms, our stories. We can recognize them, express them, release them, so we don't act on them. By working through our fear and being open with other connected humans about our process, we become empowered to create this culture of belonging. By sending out an invitation to deep witnessing and presence. In this way, we create empowering, safer spaces for vulnerable expression, no matter where we are. And that's why you gotta feel the burn of words and write, because I'm gonna tell you it's all in your head, but with passion. It's all in your head. That doesn't make it invalid. Get it out on paper. Let the dread go somewhere else for a break and hindrance and allow change to happen. None of this is happening to you. It's just happening. And our sense of identity takes it personally. But the paper and pen can handle it. The world can stand to hear your voice, so stop hiding it. What might be fire for you is a refreshing glass of water to the thirsty. And what makes you bleed can for others be a source of healing. Words are God. They create and have power. They can destroy or impassion. They can inflate or provide humility. God doesn't know what's right. So we learn to bleed. We leak our insecurities onto dead trees and hold it up for the world to see. A reflection of hell. And then we're free for that moment. And this is why I whisper. And I speak, and I exclaim, and I yell. If you